counsel, Norman Kent, and we'll go over the details to a certain extent. But we wanted to begin the program today by having Neil on just to, actually just check in and see how you're doing, because I'm a little concerned. I hope you're feeling all right today, given the circumstance.
Yeah, I'm feeling fine. I just, the only reason I'm not there today is because I got out of it. It's an interesting thing. Have you ever been in jail, Chuck?
I have never been in jail, but many people have.
But it's an interesting thing in the D.C. jail. They were kind of a light night, so I did get home by 4 this morning after bonding out. But after only about 2 hours sleep, there was really no way to come in and do a show today.
Well, that's understandable, and I wanted to again point out, because this is going to be a strange show. You think President Bush has the toughest job in America? Today, I probably have the toughest job in America, but beyond that,
could do it better though.
I probably could. But I think what we need to say is that the reason you're not on the air today has nothing to do with anything legal or anything like that. It simply is that you didn't get out, as you just mentioned, until 4 a.m., and it wouldn't be proper to have you come in, given the circumstances, and try to do a show. So.
Right. And I also want to thank, day in and day out, I give them a really rough time, and they deserve it in a lot of ways, on the smaller stuff. But in terms of the bigger picture, to use a corny cliche, I mean, the people at Cox are just incredible, from up in Atlanta to Disney, and even Boy Gary. And I'm biting my tongue till it's bleeding when I say that, but they've been just tremendous and supportive, and they understand what it's all about very well, I think. And I'll be back tomorrow. And the day after that, and after that. I
don't want this to sound schmaltzy or taken the wrong way, but you will always have my personal and professional support in this matter, Neil. And I think that I speak for lots of people in South Florida this morning.
Well, I appreciate it, Chuck, but the Pirates still suck.
Don't say that.
I know you're sucking around, Chuck. It just we're going to be bad this year, but I'm not giving up. I'm not throwing in the towel yet.
All right. Anything else you have to say?
No, I just wish you good luck, because obviously it's going to be an exciting 4 hours, and I just want to send a message to all those people in the media who feel compelled, like our friends next door, to come up here. They're certainly welcome. The Acres is beautiful. There's a nice cul-de-sac at the end of my street. I will not be answering the door. My dogs will be barking ferociously and hysterically, but I do have 2 nice Corvettes out there, and they photograph very well.
Great. Thanks, Neil.
Thanks for calling.
See you tomorrow.
Bye.
All right, Neil Rogers. Here's the statement that Mike Disney has read to the press. If you've been listening to WIOD News through the morning, you've heard this statement. It's short, but this is a statement that's been released from Michael Disney. Last night, Neil Rogers, our Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. talk show host on WIOD, was arrested and charged with a first-degree misdemeanor for indecent exposure. Neil Rogers has denied all charges and is presently free on bond. At this time, the station has no plans to suspend or terminate Neil. However, we will continue to monitor the situation. Neil Rogers will not be on the air today, but I, Mike Disney, hope that he can return very soon. Neil Rogers has asked that we thank all of his loyal listeners for their continued support, as Neil just did. Any further questions ought to be directed to his attorney, Norman Kent. So that's the statement from Michael Disney today. We do have a police report from the Miami Beach Police that I will be glad to read on the air today, but I will do it slightly later in the half hour, because it's handwritten. I have not read it verbatim yet, and I don't want to botch it up on the air. So I will read it during a break, and we will read word for word our police report from Miami Beach overnight. This will be, needless to say, a very interesting day at WIOD. There are a lot of people, there's no question, there's a lot of people in South Florida today who feel, well, what goes around comes around. And for the guy who's always taking shots at other people and their shortcomings and their foibles and their problems with the police, that it's only right and it's only justice that it happened to Neil Rogers. And that's, I guess, fine. If you want to call today and talk about that and say that, we're going to let you say it. I think that, we all, again, have to be within the bounds of the decorum here. I don't want to be setting a new record for the dump button, quite frankly, but people will want to say that. And Neil's a public guy, and he's used to that sort of thing, and he's gotten more hate calls and hate mail than any one of us will ever have in our lifetime. So I'm sure he's hip enough, savvy enough, and thick-skinned enough to be able to handle that sort of thing. On the other hand, and I don't say this simply because I'm sitting here today, and I do not say this because I happen to work for WIOD. I'm not shilling for anybody today in saying that the last time I checked, this still is the United States of America, and that you are innocent until proven guilty, that the crime that Neil has been accused of here is a misdemeanor, nothing felonious. And Neil has again denied the charges and feels that he will be fully vindicated. This is one of those very touchy times when you've got a situation where someone has been accused of something and it takes a while for the process, the courts, and for the whole issue to be aired. And Neil will be under the gun and under the scope here for a while until he is allowed to say what he has to say. So let's remember that we're all innocent until proven guilty. I think that we try to practice that. And let's try to remember today, if you would like to call with your support for Neil or your thoughts about this whole larger issue that I think we can get into on this program today.
Drives, our Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. talk show host on WIOD, was arrested and charged with a first-degree misdemeanor for indecent exposure. Neil Rogers has denied all charges and is presently free on bond. At this time, the station has no plans to suspend or terminate Neil Rogers. However, we will continue to monitor the situation. Neil Rogers will not be on the air today, but I hope he can return very soon. Neil has asked that we thank all his loyal listeners for their continued support. Any further questions should be directed to his attorney, Norman Kent.
Mobile.
WIOD personality Neil Rogers was arrested last night after allegedly exposing himself in an adult movie theater on Miami Beach. WIOD's Robert Pankow reports.
Officials say that Neil Rogers was arrested at the Gaiety Theater after two detectives saw him sitting on a back row bench, exposing himself while watching a heterosexual movie. Miami Beach police spokesman Tom Houlihan says Rogers was arrested outside the theater as he attempted to leave.
It all transpired very quickly. As the officers sat down, the subject then recognized his predicament, apparently, tried to cover himself up and get out of the theater. The officers followed him, and where it was most logical to stop him is where they identified themselves.
Houlihan says the arrest was part of a routine patrol effort in that area. Robert Pankow, News Talk Radio, 610 WIOD.
Neil's arrest has created speculation whether he'll remain on the air at WIOD. General Manager Mike Disney says he has no intention of suspending or terminating Neil. He adds that Neil Rogers' commercial sponsors have been calling, showing their support for him.
We've had contact with many advertisers so far this morning, particularly advertisers that enjoy advertising in the Neil Rogers program, and we have had nothing but support, in addition to numerous phone calls from listeners that they're very upset about it and hope that the radio station and the company stand behind it, and we do.
Disney says Neil will return to his regular time slot tomorrow morning. Chuck Meyer, as you obviously know, is hosting Neil's program this morning, and Chuck talked with Neil at the top of the show.
Yeah, I feel
Well, I want to say something. I want to say something, and this is, again, a personal observation. This morning, I'm aware that Norman Kent is often Neil's attorney, and I'm aware he does a talk show on another station in the morning.
Right.
And I tuned in, Norman, thinking he might be on the air. It turns out he's been ill for a few days and has been off. Well, a certain Mr. Kane was on another station today. His very first call, as I'm driving, is none other than Rick Sanchez. And I want to say something publicly to Rick, and I've had him on this program recently. And I purposely did not talk about his drunk driving hassle because, again, I thought that it had been hashed over a million times. I wanted to talk to him about other things. But there, I must say, and I don't think I'm being unfair to Rick Sanchez by paraphrasing what he said in the way he said it, there was a certain glee in what he said today about Neil, because he felt that Neil had never given him a fair shake, and that he had insinuated in the community that somehow Neil never gave him a fair shake and never gave him the benefit of innocence before guilt. Although I seem to recall that Rick Sanchez copped a plea in his drunk driving case. But beyond that, there was a certain sort of self-satisfaction that guys like Sanchez and Kane are getting out of this today. And I really wonder why.
Well,
because what the bigger point is if you're a public figure, you could be publicly targeted, and it could ruin a career, and these guys should know that more than anybody else. So why revel in the guy's current problem for any other reason than what I know it was, which was ratings and titillation and more talk, because that particular station never has a format unless they talk about Neil or this station, right, which is pretty weak. And to have a guy like Sanchez on, and Rick can come on over here and explain himself today if he wants to, but Rick Sanchez getting on the air at another radio station today going tisk, tisk, tisk about Neil Rogers was low. And I felt it. I could feel it right through the radio. It was low, And I told Rick Sanchez when he was on this program a few months ago that I really felt that when he copped his plea and admitted what he did with his drunk driving case, that he grew up a bit. Well, I take that back. I don't think Rick's grown up at all.
Well,
I thought it was low.
One more point, Chuck, and I'll let you go. I think Neil will be around a lot longer than